This is still Steeds Motorcycle Magazine, and we have a ghost story for you today. Okay, the creepy laugh sound effect, okay, it didn't play as well as I thought it might. I really should have some candles here, a couple of my skulls laying around, and really creepy music. But we're not going to do all that. We're just going to go and lay this ghost story out on the table. I'm going to give you a little backstory to it to explain how I came across this ghost story. And we're going to call this ghost story The Veterans Club, or Haunting of the Victory Club. And it's about a haunting of a veterans club that was in Denbo, PA, southwestern PA, little mining town. I am acquainted with the club. That's good enough. But anyway, I know about the club, and I've been at the club because of a friend of mine who passed away a good many years ago now. Mike Shoetalk of Fredericktown, Pennsylvania. Mike was a really, really good man, a World War II veteran, not by choice. He was a draftee. His mother tried to get him out of the war, and so she put down his birth date as 2 years later than it really was. She figured that the war would be over pretty quick, and she figured the Germans would probably win. It's not what happened, and the war wasn't over in 2 years. Mike's father was from Germany, right off the ship. His mother was from Austria, which you may as well say it was from Germany. It just got that little border there, but basically they're the same people. But Mike said that his father went to Austria to find a bride because at the time German women didn't shave their pits or their legs. Austrian women did, and so Mike's dad, he married himself an Austrian girl and brought her to the United States. Mike was born in the United States. His obituary said he was born in Denbo, but he must have been really young when he left because he had pointed out the house where he lived in Fredericktown, where he grew up. And then, of course, I knew the house where he lived later after he got married. And these houses were no further apart than 100 yards from each other. Probably not even 100 yards, but at the most 100 yards. They said, if you're familiar with the area, down there in Fredericktown, there's a miniature golf course. We call it Goofy Golf. And there's a Dairy Queen restaurant. And his place was just this side of the Dairy Queen restaurant. If you were gone from Washington, PA to Brownsville in that direction on Route 40, Mike's house was just a little bit before the Dairy Queen, and his house sat on the left. And the house, like I said, that he grew up in set about 100 yards. He married a school teacher. She was, I don't know, she wasn't all that easy to get along with. He come back from the war, wanted to get his own place with her, and I think she was like 10 years older than him. And my stepfather, if you want to call him that, Dwight Hall, never said much that was worth listening to. But one thing he did say was, don't marry a woman older than you because she'll think she's your boss and she'll treat you like you're her kid. And I think that Jackass had a little something going on there. I think he was correct about that, because when Mike came home from Germany, after, he went to war. He came home. He wanted to get his own place. He could have got a place on the GI Bill, whatever. She said, no, I want to stay here with my parents. So Mike moved in with her and lived with her parents. And then when she passed away, he still stayed in the house. She was up there when she passed away. And in her 90s at least. And in her 90s. And he stayed there and stayed in that house. Whenever he died, he gave it to her niece. But anyway, I'm kind of gone around the world in this story instead of getting right to it, mostly because I think you should have a little backstory in this. When Mike and the rest of the GIs came home after the war, the ones that made it home after the war, it wasn't like the movies would try to make you believe. They weren't welcomed with open arms and told, hey, come to my bar or come join my club. Quite the opposite. A lot of these guys had lived in total lawlessness for the duration of the war. And they came home and really couldn't get back into the swing of things as far as listening to laws and rules and behaving in a civilized manner. A lot of them also had the problem with PTSD. At that time, they called it battle fatigue, or what was the other one? They had a couple other words for it, but it was what we know now as PTSD. Mike never showed no signs of having PTSD. And believe me, I know the signs of them. He drank a lot, but never got drunk. And he told me, his family being just off the ship, they had, common among German families, a beer barrel in the living room with a dipper on it. And when he was thirsty as a toddler, he'd dip in there. And he said he became immune to the effects of alcohol. And I seen much proof that that was so. But him and these guys came home, didn't get quite the warm reception that they show you on Hollywood movies as, them getting. And as Mike said, he said, they donated us the materials to build a club. It wasn't because they liked this. This is a quote from Mike. It wasn't because they liked this. It was because they didn't want us in their own establishments. So this person donated block, this person donated lumber, this person donated electrical supplies, and these vets built this club that's known as the Victory Club. I didn't know what it was called. I had taken Mike there before because when he was in his 80s, his cataracts got so bad that he couldn't drive himself. And on nights that I didn't have my children, I would drive him to these clubs. And while there, I talked to a woman. I'm pretty sure her name was Evelyn, okay? I probably should know because that was my mother's real name. Her stripper name was Teresa. Just kidding about the stripper stuff, but for whatever reason she went by Teresa and Evelyn. So you might think, well, you should know if this woman was named after your mother. Yeah, me and my mother didn't have a really great relationship. But still, yeah, I probably should know, but I don't. I don't know a lot of these people's names that I'm going to tell you this story about. I know where the Veterans Club is. In a little while, I'm going to show you a picture of the Veterans Club. And like I said, I know that the story about them building it. And I know that one of the guys went by the nickname Lefty. But, whoa, gotta back up. Evelyn is a woman who told me one of the ghost tales. That's where she comes in. But the guy she tells it about, his nickname was Lefty. I was told what the guy's real name was, but I couldn't tell you now. If you offered me $1 million to come up with his real name, I couldn't do it. I should have paid more attention. I should have took notes, really, because it's an interesting story. But Lefty was called Lefty because he lost his right hand in the war. All right? But with them handy-dandy hooks, the kind that open and close, not the pirate hook, but the other kind, he was able to operate a Indian 4-cylinder Chief, okay? And he rode a lot. Some of the other guys in the club had motorcycles. You could buy Harleys dirt cheap, the WLAs, the war model Harleys. Get them for next to nothing. There was a ton of them up for sale. So some of the other guys in the club, they also rode motorcycles. One night, they were having a fire up by the club, campfire, and they were just shooting the shit, and Lefty started whining about losing a hand in Europe during World War II. And he had the right to be bitter. He had the right to whine about it. He was going to be happy about losing a hand. He was also a draftee. He didn't sign up for this shit. He was drafted into it. Came back without a hand. Hey, but Uncle Sam bought him that nice little hook thing. And he was going on and on. A lot of it was probably the booze. And he was saying, about, I lost my hand over there. I lost my hand. One of the guys who was a bit of a smart ass, but this is a funny line. Yeah, a little cruel, but a funny line. He looked at Lefty and said, look, Lefty, we all lost something over there. I lost my virginity. You lost a hand. We both lost something. Now, some of you might not think that was too funny. I thought it was hilarious. Lefty didn't think it was too funny and pulled a gun, pointed it at this smartass's head, and everybody was shitting, and some of the guys stood up and said, calm down, Lefty, calm down. And they got him to calm down and quit pointing the gun, and then they told him, we're going back down to the clubhouse, and whenever you feel better, when you feel like you want to talk, come on down. We'll be down there. And they left Lefty at the fire by himself with his gun. I guess he took the gun and tried to kill himself, and he decided the way to try to kill himself was shoot himself in the heart. Didn't kill himself right away. And then I guess he decided he didn't want to die. He went down to the club. They said one of the women had locked the door. Can't really blame her. She was probably afraid this crazy dude with PTSD and half drunk was threatening the guy with a gun. She had locked the door. To compound the problem, they were playing music, and when people party, sometimes they play the music pretty darn loud. So the music was playing, the door was locked, Lefty came, tried to open up a doorknob. If you've ever been in a situation where you've been around a lot of blood, you know how slippery blood is. As slick as snot on a doorknob, and in this case, it was blood on a doorknob. I guess Lefty's trying to turn this thing, and at the same time, he's trying to hold the hole in his chest to keep from bleeding out, and it didn't work good for them. Whenever someone went out the door a little bit later that night, they found Lefty laying dead by the club. You'll see the door where he died at whenever I show you the picture, and that's coming here pretty soon. But it's the one that has the overhang, it's like an entranceway. The door there is where he died, bled out. And so the years go by, and some strange things happened. Evelyn, if that was her name, I think it was, she seemed like an honest type gal. And if she's seen a ghost or not, I don't know, but I think she thinks she did. They were having a function at the clubhouse, and the guys were out back. They were outside. She was inside cooking something. And she turned. They had a jukebox in there, and she turned. There's old Lefty leaning on the jukebox. And this is kind of a good thing when you think about it. He had both his hands. No more hook. That's kind of promising. And I think whenever we go to wherever we're going, I think if we, get missing a limb or, whatever, I think we go wherever we're going whole again. And she said she's seen Lefty. She swore up and down she did, and he was by the jukebox, and he had both hands. Well, she let out a hell of a scream. The guys didn't know what was going on. They ran in. No one was there. But she told them what she saw, and she told me what she saw. Through the years, there's been cases where the police have been called, and people have seen Lefty laying dead outside. Yep, laying dead in front of the door. They didn't know. These people didn't even know the story of Lefty. They just seen a man laying outside the club. They called the police. The police came down and found nothing. I tried to get a record of these calls to the police a few years back. I tried to get the record, and I was told this: if they were called and they find nothing there, there's probably not going to be a report made. A lot of these guys can't type too good, and they're one finger in it, and a lot of this is before computers, so they wouldn't even bother writing it up. They'd go and look, and I'm sure after a while they either thought people were playing a joke on them, or they just didn't want to think about it, or whatever. But there's a lot of people who will tell you that several calls have been made to cops over the years because several sightings of Lefty laying there dead in front of the door. And then there's Evelyn's sighting of him in the club. Mike, he had a good sense of humor. He'd be popping caps off his beer bottles, and when no one was looking, he'd throw them against the door so they'd make a noise, and people get a little shook up. But the club is closed down. It was inevitable that it was going to close soon because most of the members were World War II vets. I was told that one of the guys, and I met the guy, one of them was a Vietnam War vet, and he kind of acted like a groundskeeper. There was a mobile home nearby. He lived in it, and he kept things up for the guys. He's a big time boozer. That guy was, and I can't remember his name either. But I had a good time talking to these old vets and stuff that the night I was there. And another thing, I hadn't got to this yet. I said about the cops being called. I said about Evelyn seeing Lefty. There was also some people complaining to the veterans not too long after Lefty was killed by his own hands, that they came and they asked these vets if they had been running an old farmall tractor up in the woods. You know, what's going on? Why are you running that tractor up in the woods so late? And Mike told me he was asked this. You know, he was directly in on this deal. And Mike said, what are you talking about? We're not running no tractor up there at night. And Mike got on the man's case because, you know, making up stuff, trying to give us a hard time down here. And the guy said, well, it sure sounded like a farmall tractor. Think about it. If you know what a farmall M sounds like and you know what a Indian 4 sounds like, the sounds are pretty identical. Pretty identical. But that's the story. The address is 1 Victory Lane, Denbo, Pennsylvania. So if you want to go out and have a little look around, take your ghost hunting equipment, see what you find. I know I can believe Mike. He was a really, really honest man. I remember one night I drove him to another club, and this one fellow was there, and he said, Mike, we really put it to them Nazis, didn't we? Guy's drunk and slobbering on himself. Mike could have just said, yeah, we did. Yeah, we're heroes, something of that nature. But instead, he looked at the man and said, quote, look, I've learned to live with my guilt. We both know what we did over there, and you got to learn to live with your guilt, but don't try to say we did a wonderful thing. Some more of Mike's honesty was, he told me, he says, when I went to Germany, he said, I thought it was going to be soldier against soldier. I wasn't for the war, but I thought it was going to be soldier against soldier. And he said one day they came upon a village and got in a little firefight, and a woman ran out of one of the homes carrying a baby in her arms. He said this beautiful blonde woman with a beautiful baby in her arms. He said some of the guys quit shooting, but a lot of them didn't. He said after that day, I was just bound and determined to try not to kill anybody I didn't have to kill, but try to make it home alive. And that was his attitude, and he did make it home alive. And I'm very thankful for that. One other story, it has nothing to do with the ghost story deal, but I thought it was pretty interesting. Anybody that knows anything about history and the history of World War II knows that the German SS men were, a fighting force like no other. They were total badasses. And Mike said that whoever was in command of their unit, probably an NCO, told them, we got to mop up this village. There's some guys held up in this house. And once we do that, we have a few days. We can just screw off, have a good time till they send us somewhere else. And the guys were pretty happy. But then the NCO told them they're SS men. And Mike said the smiles went off everybody's faces. Because even though they had these guys outnumbered badly, they were SS men, and they expected one hell of a fight from them. And Mike said after, a lot of shooting, There was like 5 or 6 of these guys still in the house, and they charged with fixed bayonets. And they were mowed down by Mike and his comrades at arms there. And he said when they were gone through their stuff, not a single one of them had a bullet left. That's why they charged with fixed bayonets. They had no more bullets to shoot, but they weren't going to surrender. And you could hear in Mike's voice the respect he had for these men, you know. But he told me about some of the hell he'd been through. And like I said, I see no signs of him having PTSD, but it's a wonder he didn't. I'm going to do a little slideshow of a picture I have of the club. I want you to go look at it and imagine poor Lefty laying there, a bullet wound in his chest. He's bleeding out. He's covered in blood. He, is sitting there struggling with that doorknob, and it's not opening. Number one, it's locked. Number two, that blood is so slick, he just can't turn it. Fell down on the pavement there, and he's dying. Or how about imagine the people who came past there and seen the apparition of Lefty laying on the ground and thought they had come across a man who had just recently died. Here he'd been dead for years. Are there ghosts? You got to decide that for yourself, I guess. You take care. We'll catch you on the next episode of Steeds Motorcycle Magazine.